Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the American Dream. My name is Jim Carrigan, and tonight we have three wonderful guests from St. Mary's School, St. Mary's High School in Lynn, and I'm going to introduce you to them right now. Grace Cotter Regan is the head of school, and Jim Ridley is the assistant head of school and principal of the high school, and Jeff Newhall is the athletic director, who's having enormous success. All three of them are. So Grace, let's start with you. What's going on now at St. Mary's that we should know about?
Sure. Well, it's an exciting year for us. We're in our 135th year, so it's an anniversary year for St. Mary's. And we just had a celebratory mass with Cardinal Sean, which was attended by alumni, parents, and friends, which was a lovely mass. And some great things are happening academically. As you know, we got our accreditation last year, our NEASC accreditation, which was a 2-year process. And so we have a 10-year accreditation. And so as a result of that, we looked at what the recommendations were. We got high marks on everything.
Great.
But one of the things they wanted us to look at was our curriculum and our data. So we did a real deep dive on all of our data, all of our test scores of our students, and from when they apply HSPT to their SATs. And what we've developed is an academic dashboard. It's interactive so that we can tell where a student is from, who they are, how much financial aid they're getting, what they're achieving, and where their GPA is as a freshman or a sophomore. So we know how a student is doing in line with their projected kind of expectations from HSPT. So
what's HSPT?
The high school placement test. That's
Okay.
the high school
Okay.
placement test. But it's a good indicator. It depends who you talk to, but I think it's a good indicator of how students will do and how they'll achieve. It's not the only indicator, but it does indicate how students will do. So if we know, for instance, a student who's high achieving in 8th grade and comes to St. Mary's and as a sophomore is not achieving test-wise and grade point, now we can zone in on that student and make sure that that child has all the help he or she needs. So we can identify those kids early if they're not achieving, or if they are high scoring and high testing, but their GPA isn't where it should be. We can kind of do the custom approach to guidance to make sure that they're doing what they're doing, what they should be doing. And the whole goal is for every student to achieve their preferred option for college or whatever it is that they want.
And who does that approach? Is it a guidance counselor? Or
it's a combination. It's guidance.
Teachers?
It really now resides in guidance, but we've developed an academic improvement committee, which is chaired by our academic council chairs, Mike Jalbert and Fran White, who oversee that with Jim and myself, and we have representation from all over the school. So the other things that happen are there's a retention committee, so we kind of look at the kids who might be at risk. We look at the kids who are really gifted to see if we can help them to push them toward whatever it is that their goal might be, and to kind of customize their guidance experience. So that's been one of the recommendations from NEASC, was that we should look at our guidance program and really develop a formation approach. So if a child came in 6, we would have an approach through 12 and have a true integrated curriculum, so we know that they would have certain mastery or certain competencies at every grade level. And then, if a student, say, wanted to be a nurse practitioner, with our Naviance program, which is the guidance program, which has a lot of bells and whistles, it's very robust, that they could look at where do kids go who want to be nurse practitioners and what GPA do I have to get into that school. So as a freshman or a sophomore, they're thinking there, not necessarily
you can
about...
get them right on track.
Yeah.
Okay. How long have you been there now?
It's my 5th year.
Wow,
Yeah.
time flies.
It does, yeah. So it's been really exciting. We've done a lot of great things. It's a team approach, and having Jim and next to me is a great gift, and also with Jeff. Jeff's amazing, and from an academic and athletic perspective, he really looks at all the student athletes.
Okay, so you participated in hiring Jim, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Jim, you were the former principal at Linvo Tech?
Yes, I worked for the Lynn School Department for 37 years, and I was happily retired in 2010. And then I did some work for Superintendent Kathy Latham in 2015. I went to the Marshall Middle School to help open the school. And then that same school year, I did at the end of the school year, I went to Breed. The principal there, Julie Loof, was out on a maternity leave, And that April, St. Mary's High School knew that they were going through a change, and they were looking for someone just to be interim. And I spoke with Grace, and we talked about it, and we talked about my role and what they were looking for, and it suited me, and I was only supposed to be there for just for the first quarter, and they were just getting ready to go through their accreditation process, and so I was happy to be there. I went through that with Lynn Tech. But they were right at the end, so I really didn't have to do anything except for just kind of be there. In being there for the first part of the year, everything just fell into place for me. Grace and I talked, and I was going to stay, for the rest of that last school year, and it morphed into me still being there, and I'm happy to be there. With St. Mary's going through their accreditation process, it gave me a roadmap, which made it feel easy for me to kind of just follow. They did their self-study. We knew exactly what needed to be done, what needed to be fixed, where we were going, and it made it easy for someone new like myself to come in and just kind of follow the blueprint that Grace and the staff already established.
I went to St. Mary's, as you all know, and one of the outstanding features of St. Mary's education is that they take care of one another. The students and the faculty, they really help one another. I know of a couple of girls from suburban schools who were pretty smart, they were doing well in school, in their schools, but they were having trouble getting along with others, and I don't think it was their fault. One kid said she went to a soccer game. She played soccer for her high school, and she went to play at Danvers High School, and she came home and she told her mother, she said, "Mom, those kids from Danvers were great. They got along so well together, and they were good to one another." So as a result of that discussion, she ended up at St. Mary's, and she had a great career. She's through college. And there was another girl who she was very short. She didn't have a thing wrong with her, except she was small. She was short for her age. And the kids used to make fun of her. That's the cruelest thing you can do to a child. So she got out of there and she went to St. Mary's. In fact, I used to do some volunteer teaching at St. Mary's, and I had her in class, and she was delightful. And we all had a great time together. I remember that class was A.J. Capano. I just got to give him the plug. He was just a superstar then. Now he's a lawyer. So, okay. So that's to the credit of the faculty and the leadership. I mean, I know it is, and I'm glad it still happens. Everybody is. I talk to parents from time to time, and they talk about that aspect of St. Mary's.
Well, Jim, we created our pillars for success about
Right.
5 years ago, and the students, it feels like they've been around forever. So one of the things that happened in our accreditation is the accreditation team asked us how we live our mission. And one of our stellar students just stood right up and said, we live them through our pillars, which are Catholic excellence, integrity, and respect. And I think that Jim and Jeff and the faculty and staff do a great job at holding the students accountable to those pillars. Right. So this year our pillar is excellence. So that's one of the things with our academic study in the dashboard, that we talk about excellence in everything we do. And it's not just in the classroom, it's how do you treat people, dignity, and respect.
But it's not forced, though. I mean, it's like it's an ethic at
Yeah.
the school, and it's great.
I think it's a routine where it was already established at St. Mary's, as you know, from the former students that you just talked about, and it's something that when the students first come into the building, that because the older kids do it, they just follow along, okay, and it's a process of not only the students caring about themselves, but they care about other people.
Right.
And one of the big things that I saw at St. Mary's, you talk about their mission, they really live their mission, they really talk about giving back all the time, but we actually don't just talk about it, we actually do it. We have the Rachel's Challenge program, and those kids, they're going to places like my brother's table.
Explain that program. I see it on resumes a lot, the Rachel's Challenge program.
Well, Rachel's Challenge started because there was a young lady who was, I think, maybe the first or second student who was killed during the Columbine situation. And after she passed away, her parents found her diary that talked about giving back. And they just wanted to have a legacy of her. And so they started just within the high schools, a legacy of students just giving back to the community. And there were chapters that started in Massachusetts. I believe that we're still the oldest chapter in Massachusetts. We've been going about 10 years. And it's run by Nurse Lisa Morin LaPlante.
Right.
And it's amazing because the Rachel's Challenge students, they meet once a month in the morning, at 7 o'clock in the morning. And you'll be surprised. Our lecture hall holds about 125 students, 140 students. It's full at 7 o'clock in the morning.
That's fantastic.
And they're talking about the things that they're going to do now, because this month is Christmas, Thanksgiving and Christmas. So now they're talking about, trying to find homes, trying to find homeless kids to give back to the community. And it's just amazing how big it is.
And to add to that, one of the things that in Rachel's diary, it said, create a chain reaction of kindness and compassion. And so, to your point, Jim, about the things that happen in schools that you deal with, whether it's bullying or other things that might happen at a school. So if a student brings to Rachel's Challenge that they noticed that students were sitting alone in the cafeteria on that morning, that Tuesday morning, the message might be, okay, this week, you need to find someone who's sitting alone and go over and say hello to them and see if they're doing okay. Or if there's been an issue of, something, we have issues, of course, like everyone, with all of the cyber stuff and all of social media. If texting is an issue, then we address it. So it's a great way for the kids to own it and kind of take it on their own. And rather than us bring the issues to the students bring the issues to each other. So it's much more meaningful, and the impact is much greater.
Marvelous. So what else do you do besides Rachel's Challenge?
Academically, we have clubs. We have all kinds of clubs at the school, and of course we have sports. But academically, we're working now. And again, the kids who go to St. Mary's, they know right away that they're going to be going to college. So they come in as a freshman. They know they're going to college. What we try to instill into them is, are you going to get to college of your choice, or are you going to have to settle? The students at St. Mary's, they know that they're competing with other high school students throughout the country academically for scholarships. So their focus coming in is on academics. So there's not a lot of horseplay within the classroom. And I find that as being such a positive aspect. Whereas if you're, and again, they're teenagers, sometimes they say and do dumb stuff, but for the most part, they understand that they're attending St. Mary's because they want to go to college, and they want to go to the college of their choice. And that's a big difference that we talk about. We talk about, are you going to have to settle for the college, or are you going to get your first or second choice? Okay,
good. Now, I know you're involved in the same thing. You're head of the sports program, and St. Mary's, and you are having tremendous success in winning championships. In fact, this program right now is being taped. So it's before the Super Bowl. We're taping this program before the Super Bowl, but when the TV audience sees it, it will be after the Super Bowl. So I don't want to jinx St. Mary's in the Super Bowl, so I won't ask you to comment on that, except you can talk about what led to the Super Bowl, how your football team did. But you key right into that ethic of getting the kids to care for one another. And And it all goes together, it all works out, and we end up with solid citizens. So if you want to talk about that as well as your sports activities.
Yeah, I think that everything that we've talked about here is right on point, and we treat athletics really as an extension of the school day. And I think at that point is where our success really begins, because in my opinion, we have the best coaching staff in this area, and really different sports where kids are actually attracted to the school because of the program, or maybe a coach individually, or maybe the total package. But when you talk about things after school, and the football teams having tremendous success, and we've had great success across the board throughout the fall. Numerous teams made the tournament. Golf team finished second in the state, which sometimes goes unnoticed because golf might not be the Friday Night Lights type sport, but
Right.
They were within 7 shots of winning a state championship, and little things like that go a big way. But football team's success is really it's not just in those 12 games. It goes back to what they do really year round. It's the dedication of the coaching staff, the dedication of the kids, and while we have great coaches, we have great student athletes as well. And when you talk about the total experience, the football team on a normal week, despite what some people may think, you just don't show up at 6:30 on Friday night and play. A lot of it goes into it. Every week, Mondays are spent running, lifting weights, and watching anywhere from 2 to 5 hours of film on the previous game and the next opponent, practices, and then the night before every game, the team and the coaches attend Mass right over here at St. Mary's in the chapel with either Father Brian or Father Dominic, and they have a team dinner. And then the next day is game day, and so there's a lot more that goes into it than just the 44 minutes on Friday night. But we're lucky to have that type of experience across the board, whether it's football or basketball or hockey or baseball or softball. Our coaches are dedicated to the school, dedicated to the kids, and the kids really deserve most of the credit because they're tremendous student athletes who balance a very difficult schedule between academics, athletics, getting your homework done, eating, and for some of them, it's not going from Gallagher Park to Walnut Street. It's going from it's going from Gallagher Park back to Salem or Georgetown in some cases, and that's quite a commitment.
Okay. And what about your basketball team? How are they doing?
Well, as I know this isn't on until for another week or so, but this week is actually a very, very busy time at St. Mary's, a great time. Whereas the football team, there's excitement around that, and they're going to go play at Gillette Stadium. But this afternoon, in about 4 hours, our winter sports start as well: swimming, track, girls hockey, boys basketball, girls basketball. So we're expecting anywhere from 200 to 250 kids, more than half the school, really, to come out and participate today.
That's incredible.
Yeah, we're at around across the board, roughly 64% of the kids play at least one sport, which across the state is obviously anywhere from 7 to 10% higher than most schools.
Okay, so what are you doing to support these athletic programs?
Whatever they need. We work together as a team. The biggest thing for us is making sure the students stay eligible, which that's a great carrot to dangle in front of a student who might be struggling, but they do, and they're committed. So the fact that Jeff and the coaches and Jim work with guidance to make sure that the students are on task, and that's the difference. I think our coaches pay attention not only to the athletic part of a student's life, but they're also doing study hall. Many of the sports will have a study hall or a required study hall. The coaches check in on grades just to make sure that the students, and they also check in not just only on grades, but they also check on behavior to make sure that the students are good citizens in the classroom and that there's leadership happening. And we've seen a lot of leadership come out of the athletes in the past few years, in terms of not only whether it was their own year or their own season, that they're in sport, but some of those kids last year were our greatest supporters of every other sport by rallying the student, cheerleading squad to get there, have a whiteout at a hockey game, so you'd have 150 kids on 2 buses. So it's really exciting. It's very infectious. So Jeff and Jim and I talk all the time about, are there any things we can be doing better, sportsmanship-wise, or
How do you help kids academically? I mean, if somebody's falling behind and you want to keep them on the team and you want to keep them in the school.
I think that's one thing that, and I think that Jim would agree, again, it's not, I know everyone's judged on your end result, which in sports is wins and losses, I understand that, but at the high school level, to be able to have, the coaches that we have, I think, one of the most important things is if we have, Jim Carrigan, who's playing football and baseball, and he's struggling a little bit. Sometimes, his homeroom teacher or his mom or his dad or the principal might not be the person that he's really going to listen to. At which point, Mr. Ridley or we would call the coach in to be part of that meeting, and then all of a sudden, things start going either one way or the other.
Yeah,
you can figure out pretty quickly if things start improving, which most of the time they do, that this young man or young woman has respect for their coach and is afraid that they may lose something that they really want, which is whatever that sport may be.
Play for the sport.
If they continue to go in the wrong direction, then we kind of get we get a pretty clear signal that maybe it can't be turned around. But to have the involvement of the coach, basically, probably within 30 minutes, any of them would come to the school if we called them and said we needed them. And that is, again, something that I don't think happens everywhere. It's not exclusive to us, but it's just another point that adds to the success of the total kid. And thankfully, we haven't had, knock on wood, many academic issues because most of the kids are there for a specific reason, and that's to go to college. And the parents are paying a substantial amount of money to go to school. And if you're not going to do the required work, then why would the parents invest whatever the amount of money is that they're paying towards an education that they're not getting?
We'll talk about money in a minute, but Jim, do you provide tutors, or do the teachers give extra assistance? Or how does that
Yes.
work?
Well, like most high schools, all of our teachers have afternoon sessions, but we also have some teachers that will also meet their student early in the morning. So some students who work after school or who play sports after school would rather come early in the morning. We also, our National Honor Society, we also have tutors that we assign to different students. So if a parent calls us and asks us, do we have a tutor? We'll get a National Honor Society student who is good in whatever subject that particular subject is, and we will line them up with that student sometime after school for a couple of days a week until the student can handle whatever the problem is that they have.
Do those tutors get paid, or?
Oh, no, they're
volunteer.
volunteer, but that's part of their duty because part of the National Honor Society the duty is to tutor.
Okay.
Okay, and actually, we just had the induction ceremony a couple of weeks ago, and then we also made sure that the students we had a mass the other day, and so we brought all of our National Society students, the older ones who are seniors, and then the new inductees. We brought them up to the altar so that the whole student body could see them, and also celebrate them. Because one thing I used to say when I was at Bree Middle School in Atlanta Tech is that I was told all my students who are members of the National Honor Society never apologize for being smart.
Right.
It's
Great.
okay.
Back to money. We're going to have to wrap this up. So how do you pay for all this?
Well, that's a good question, Jim. So we do have a very low tuition. I mean, it might seem significant to a lot of folks who are looking at St. Mary's. Our tuition is $12.95 for the high school and about $7,900 for the lower school. We're very blessed with benefactors who assist us in terms of helping with some of the scholarship and financial aid for those students. We give out probably about 1.6 a year in financial aid, probably a little more last year. And about probably almost $1 million of that is funded, which is great, from endowed scholarships. But the budget is the budget, so it's hard to make decisions. We have to really vet all of our new programming that happen. Sometimes some of our board members or benefactors have found resources for us. Our fundraising we apply for grants for certain programs like robotics, or the guidance program that we did this summer, where we took 125 students to colleges, which was a great experience. we're going to formalize that program. So we're applying for some grants with some foundations, and we're also making that a donor opportunity. But, you know, I think the message is that it's a great value for the dollar. We're a great value proposition for a parent.
And you have a school building program coming up, right?
That's correct. So tomorrow is, again, the day before the big event, but we're putting a sign up which will signify the launch of our new building, which is the Gateway and STEM building for St. Mary's. It's an $8 million building. We're in a $14 million campaign. We've just about hit our goal, and we're moving past that goal to about $16.5 million, which is amazing, the biggest campaign we've ever done at St. Mary's. And that embraces the building, endowment for scholarship, and also some academic enhancements. So we have a master plan. It's really exciting. There's just a lot going on, and you know, things are happening. It's really exciting.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming on the show.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Very